I'd like to acknowledge Australia's First Nation people as the traditional custodians of the land, and for this episode in particular, the Pangarang people. I pay my respects to their elders past, present and emerging.
And then we started to really focus on Italian varieties, and then all those things seemed like a natural progression for us until we got into it, and then we went, what the hell have we done?
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Michael Dal Zotto is the second generation winemaker and co-owner of Dal Zotto in the King Valley of Victoria. Along with his brother Christian, they are continuing the work their pioneering family has done for generations. They do it with passion and total loyal commitment. Hi Michael, thanks for joining me.
Hi Shanteh, thanks for having me.
It's a joy. I mean, I don't think I know a single person in the Australian wine industry that doesn't know of you guys and love you guys. And it's just lovely to have you on to talk about the rich history of the King Valley and your part in it.
Awesome. No, it's great to be here. It's always nice to be able to share our story, and it's really nice to be told what you've just said then. So thank you very much. Really appreciate it.
I still remember the day I was on my first ever sommelier's immersion program. We called it the SIP trip, that went down to the King Valley, and sitting in a room with you and your brother and it was so relaxed and it was so hospitable, and I felt like I was with a family sitting in their own like lounge room just talking and laughing. And I remember thinking, wow, this doesn't feel like a spreadsheet kind of PowerPoint demonstration that I thought it was going to be, and it was so lovely.
I think that's just, we love the fact that that's how you felt, because that's what we try to, that's how we are. You're just coming there to have a glass of wine with us, essentially. For us, wine's about fun, and, we do this because we enjoy it. We do it because it's attached to our family's history. And most of all, it helps bring people together, and those programs are great, because I think hopefully you felt that throughout the whole of the King Valley, because it's a pretty special place from that perspective. People tend to sort of really welcome you in, because we know we're not on a main thoroughfare anywhere. People make a really conscious decision to come here, and we really appreciate it, and we want people to have a really great experience.
That's for sure. I think it was you guys, Sam Miranda and the Bazzinis. Like, you can't really go wrong there, can you?
Not really. Not at all. You guaranteed good wine and good food. Done.
Absolutely. And a lot of laughs, if I remember correctly. Now, we do need to go back a ways to your parents, Otto and Elena. Tell me a little bit about where they were born and how they made their way to Australia.
So, Mum was born in a little town called Lana, Trento, or the South Tyrol, so up in the Alto Adige area. And so she came over as an 8-year-old with her family, and they first went up to Robin, which is over in the Ovens Valley, and then purchased property here and then grew tobacco. Dad is a little bit different. So mum and her family, they were like post-war migrants, and they were leaving to get a better life, because, they were sort of going, okay, there's no opportunities here, let's go somewhere else. And it was kind of like, where do we go? And one of the brothers was over here in Australia already, and they came over. And then Dad came over as a 19-year-old. Like, he was just on an adventure. He'd done a trade in Switzerland, moved back home, and then I think he quickly worked out that Mum and Dad and he couldn't live in the same house together anymore. So he grabbed the plane and came over to Australia and came straight to the King Valley, and was with one of his cousins over here growing tobacco. And they basically share farmed tobacco until the mid-'80s, when they purchased their own property and planted their first vineyard.
Wow. When did your parents meet, and did they tell you it was love at first sight?
It wasn't love at first sight, I can guarantee you. I know that for sure. So Mum was working in the local store. Dad was in the King Valley, and Dad would come in and Mum would say, Mum would say, oh, who's this smart ass? I think he was quite taken by her, obviously. And he obviously smartened up his act because, like, I think within a couple of years they were married. So he'd only intended to stay here for a short time and then go back to Italy, but met Eleanor and then got married. So he came to Australia around 69 and no 67, sorry, and then by the time he met Mum, they got married, and then I was born a year later, so 71. So they got married in 1970. So so it wasn't love at first sight, that's for sure.
It was, maybe it was one-way love at first sight.
One-way love at first sight. And Mum was like, oh, geez, who's this? Who's this bloody smart ass coming in here asking for all these things, So, and then slowly but surely they built up their sort of saved their money and were sort of going always had that dream of having their own property. And when they were in a position to be able to buy the property, they decided to plant grapes rather than tobacco, which for us has been, quite a good move by them. And it really made it it really gave us, that impetus to grow off.
Yeah, thank God. I think everybody's thrilled that they moved out of tobacco and into grapes, whether people drink wine or not.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm sorry. And Dad came over from Baldwin.
Yes.
A small town just like 40 minutes north of Venice.
And I've been to Val d'Olbardine, and it is stunning.
Yeah, it's pretty. Stunning. It's a pretty beautiful spot. It's basically at the Prealps. So you're starting to get up a bit, and but it's still got that lovely. It's still got some nice mild weather, but then of an evening, beautiful cool evenings. The views are stunning. It's a very beautiful spot.
And your parents decided to move into grapes, and did what I suppose a lot of people do is planting things that were familiar to them, not originally, but tell me a little bit about kind of that process to where they became quite well established.
Yeah, it was like a lot of people, they were encouraged to plant the traditional varieties. Like they were share farming. They were contract growing grapes. They would grow Cabernet, Merlot, Chardonnay, Shiraz, and Dad only planted. I'll tell a little story about Dad. He only planted Shiraz because he was told by a winemaker who was buying fruit, you can never grow good Shiraz in the King Valley, and that was like a red rag to a bull. So Dad just decided, well, I'm going to plant some Shiraz, and that was when he probably first embarked on making wine himself. As in making it here. He'd made it in Italy with his father, but never here. He'd only just sold the fruit off. And he planted this Shiraz, and then a few years later he was around the dinner table and pulled out these bottles of wine and poured some glasses for people and asked the winemaker that was there, what do you think of that wine? And they go, he'd had it in, as usual Italian, he'd recycled some old bottles with some old labels on them. And they were like, we've got this, this wine looks every bit of this wine from that region. Yeah, no, it looks fantastic, really like it. And Otto goes, that's my Shiraz from over there. And it didn't get taken too well, but got taken as a little bit of with the fun and with the fun that he'd hope it was intended. But he sort of did prove, he did always love to be able to go, he'd love to prove people wrong. That was his thing he loved to do. And that's the Shiraz we still have now that we call Il Contro Shiraz, which is to go against. Il Contro is to go against.
That's so good. It's funny because I know growing up, I met an Italian friend and I went to his house and they were making their own wine and gave me some, and I remember thinking, it tastes like wine, it's okay, it's not great. I mean, I didn't know what great wine was, but I think it's interesting because in a history like an Italian history, it was very normal to have your own to make your own wine, to make your own passata, like all of those things. And it's actually a skill set that if you plucked a Joe Blow off the street and said, have a go at making your first wine, they wouldn't have a clue. And so it's quite interesting that this is innate in a lot of the heritage of, that's what was done.
That's what was done. It's really interesting because all those things, it's like you say, like making salami, making salsiccia, making passata, it's kind of like I got taught by my friend's father how to make salami, how to make salsiccia. So it's kind of passed down. And now at some point, we'll hopefully show our kids how to do it. They get involved with it. They'll learn. They'll have learned without knowing they're learning. And you probably don't realise it when you're younger, but then as you get older, there's a lot of joy in it. And making your own wine. And I think, that's why it was such an easy move, say, from accounting to winemaking, because just how every year is different. Two, how the wine evolves over time, and how what you think is great at one moment can become spectacular or could fall over. And sometimes it's not anything you've done; it's just the composition of the fruit at that for that vintage. And you sort of sit there and go, like, the mystery of it makes it gives as much enjoyment as just the process and being able to say, hey, I made this wine.
I just think it's so, the more we move with modernity and embrace, AI and all these things, we do tend to lose a little bit of these skills. And knowing just the very simple understanding of how fermentation works, or knowing how to make pickles, and, understanding kind of how to make them so they don't explode, all these simple things are actually big skill set that a lot of people don't have. And I think it's beautiful that it's carried on. But I do want to talk about you, because you worked as an accountant, which, let's face it, is also a huge skill set for a family business. That was not put to waste. But when did it turn around for you and you decided that you didn't want to work as an accountant full time?
It was probably 4 years into when I started my first job. I was 4 years in. I was working for a really good company. They were good fam. It was a family business. It was a transport company, and I was management accounting there. They were. I was just working. I was working some what I thought were pretty long hours at the time, and I just sort of thought, why? And I was looking outside, and it was like a day like today. It was it was probably winter at the time, so it's autumn now, but there was beautiful blue skies. The heaters were on really hot, and I'm thinking, like, what am I doing sitting in here when I could be out there? And then my wife and I were looking for a property, and then Dad sort of put out there, oh, would you ever consider coming home and working on the farm? And my wife and I sort of were like, well, we want to start a family soon, and be really nice to be close to parents and, relatives and all that nearby, so the kids could see them all the time, all those sort of things. We decided to come back, and it was probably one of the best moves we made, because you just being able to, like, yes, I worked in the office, and then I worked outside. I'd do vintage every year. That was the core responsibility at the time, was sort of coming in and learning the vineyard, learning the winery, doing the financial stuff in the background. But it was just that moment where I went, yeah, no, why am I just stuck inside all the time?
Yeah, I mean, moving closer to babysitting, like 101, smart move. But the lifestyle, being close to family, I can see the draw cards and what a beautiful spot the King Valley is. I couldn't believe, how many curves and turns when I was there driving through, where each turn I was like, oh my God, that photo there, that's the landscape. And then you'd turn another corner and be like, no, that's better. It's just so beautiful.
Yeah, I often say there's no bad view up here. Like, it is, yeah, we are lucky, and we sometimes take it for granted, but I kind of, if I've ever gone away and then I come back and I drive over the Edai cutting, which, if you're a local, that for me is sort of, the King Valley sort of encompasses all that Millewa, but the upper King Valley is where I lived, and that for me is coming home when I go over that cutting. And it just, you sort of go in through, it tightens up, and then it opens out, and you've got this beautiful valley, and it's just the colours, it's green. Then this time of year, there's beautiful oranges and yellows. To me, it's just what I call home. And so I love the place. And so to come back was easy, but it was a big move to go, okay, do I want to give this up, and go pursue a path that I have no idea. And I'd actually started to do the winemaking course at Charles Sturt. I was doing that part-time while I was working in doing the accounting work. and said, "Oh, yeah, let's just do it." So that was the time to do it, and we did it, and sort of haven't regretted it once.
Pretty big change to go from working with numbers to working with other numbers in outdoors, but outdoors and indoors, I suppose. Did you find it challenging, or did you find that you had a bit of an affinity for it?
Look, I probably, once I actually started to do vintage, I probably found I had more of an affinity for it. The numbers and the books were probably, the actual book side of it was driving me nuts. And it was kind of like, oh, I never wanted to have to hand an assignment in on a Monday morning again. I swore I'd never do that. But then I started to do vintage, and then doing vintage taught me everything, like I did a vintage at King Valley Wines and saw a whole heap of different varieties, and that's when you sort of start to see Sangiovese, Barbera, Anise, all those varieties. And you started to go, all right, this is really, and you sort of see the application of it. And then I kind of learnt that much that I went, well, I'm actually just going to do vintages and I'm going to ditch the books. So I actually didn't study any. I probably got not quite halfway through the course and then just focused on vintages and working with other people to try and build my knowledge base and develop my winemaking skills that way.
Wow, that's really interesting. From where your parents started to now, your business is incredible. Not only do you have, some of the most beautiful Prosecco in bottles, but you also have it in cans. You're working with Garganega, Nebbiolo, you do Pasito styles, you've got spritzers, your Col Fondo, and now you also have accommodation, cellar door, food offerings. It's massive, but I'm sure it didn't feel like it all happened overnight.
No, it's kind of, yeah, everything in hindsight looks like it did happen pretty quickly. And when you think that I moved back in 98, Christian came back in 2000, and it all happened pretty fast. And especially like once Christian started selling in Melbourne, we sort of started to go, oh, wow, bang, that ticked along. And then we started to really focus on Italian varieties. And then all those things seemed like a natural progression for us until we got into it. And then we went, what the hell have we done? It's kind of like, it all seems good in theory because, oh, shit, yeah, let's have a restaurant. We love food. It's like, yeah, we love to eat food. So it's kind of all those things, but they're all, like, I'm looking out at our accommodation at the moment, which is pretty busy this weekend. The grounds are getting done, ready for Easter. The grounds look amazing, and there's tables and chairs being set out on the lawn because we'll have people around everywhere. So yeah, it sort of grew from the vineyard selling grapes to the winery, and I think the first year I was home, we might have made 6 barrels of red and 3 barrels of white, and then just grew from there. It just grew from there, and it's sort of like, yeah, it seemed like it took forever, and even Prosecco, which you touch on, which is our pride and joy. Christian and I would be pulling our hair out going, how come people aren't just buying this? This is going to go nuts. They've got to buy it. They've got to get on it. But, we released the first Prosecco in 2004. It wasn't until the sort of mid 210, between 210 to 220 that it actually really, really took off. We were sort of sitting there going like, oh, shit, like why can't people see what we see? We just had this faith in it. That, it wasn't necessarily that we knew what we were doing 100%, but we just had this faith, and the connection to our family allowed us to tell a really beautiful story. So for us, it was like, oh, this is going to succeed. People are going to fall in love with this wine. Yeah. So when you had that as your main driver and your focus, the other stuff sort of grew around it.
Mm. I think it's amazing that that dedication of faith. I'm sure it comes from kind of your father and mother as well. And Italian people are incredibly proud, and thank goodness they are, because I think, it does take that real belief in what you're doing to foresee those harder years. And, you've had some challenging moments of fights over naming rights, which I don't really want to go into because there's so much about your story that I find that that's probably, not the focus we need to go through. But you have fought tooth and nail to stay true to your story over the years. And I think it's one of the best parts about your brand is it is so authentic. And everything you do, from the way that you and Christian communicate, you are so proud and so passionate about your own authentic, unique story, and it comes across.
Oh, that's really great to hear. And it's kind of, we always just feel it's like, that's easy because you don't have to make it up. It kind of just flows. Dad grew up in Valdobbiadene. He had Prosecco on the table, and, if you touch on it briefly, it's kind of like, it was called Prosecco then. It was always the grape variety Prosecco. He was, when we planted it, it was not for any other reason than to share what he loved from home. So to bring a little piece of his history here to Australia. So for us, to be passionate about it's really easy because it sort of flows through our veins. It's just so much of who we are. That's why we did the traditional tabello called fondo, which is, made with drying grapes out on the rack. So we don't add yeast, we don't add sugar, we just add concentrated grape juice to a base wine for the secondary fermentation, which is how Prosecco was made before Charmat tanks, before yeast was introduced into the equation, or sugar. It was just purely a natural product. So it's kind of, for us, we just want to show what it can be and show why we're proud of it.
Yeah, and I think I had some beautiful cofondos when I was over in Italy, and it's a real passion of so many people to make that style, and we don't see it a lot in Australia, so I'm thrilled that you guys do it. Tell me a little bit about your family, and do you all speak Italian at home? Has that been passed down to everybody?
When I was born, Dad spoke Italian at home. Mum spoke English. So I sort of got best of both worlds, but it was dialect, Italian dialect. Then my brother, Julian, who's number two brother, he spoke actually probably the best Italian of all of us and could understand it better than any of us. Christian and Simon understand bits and pieces, but not as much. So we didn't really talk Italian. We did have Nonna Maria who lived with us, which was that very typical Italian thing where the grandparents come and lived with the parents. And so she lost her husband when he passed away when he was 54. And so she lived with us, and she only spoke Italian to the day she died. She did not speak any English, so we could all understand her. So I can speak Italian. I do tend to migrate from Italian to Italian dialect, which is the northern dialect. And my children, one of my daughters speaks Italian, but the other kids don't. Which is sort of a bit of a shame, but it's like you said, it's like with the preserving and making wine and all those things. They're things that get lost, unfortunately.
Yes, I totally understand that as somebody who speaks zero Chinese. I'd love to have it innate in me, but going to learn it now is quite something else. So.
Yeah, that'd be tough. Yeah.
Tell me a little bit about how you and Christian kind of split up the business and how that kind of works in terms of operations.
Well, I typically take on, now, even more so now, I really focus on the winemaking in the vineyard and do a little bit of in-market support, which Christian sort of goes, can you help out with this, or can you help out with that sort of scenario. Christian handles, the brand, the sales and the marketing, and he's very much, networking out in the industry, networking, and, he'll work with our graphics guy to make sure the labels are how we sort of see the brand. How we want the brand reflected. So that's where he sits, and he handles that and the sales and dealing with our distributors, along with sort of handling, like working with the events team here and social media and all that stuff. And myself, I work with the vineyard and winemaking team, and previously was working with on the financial side, but then did that less now that we've brought in a new CEO. So I get to just focus on what I want to focus on, to be honest, and getting stuck into vintage and not having to worry about any of the other things, which is a real joy, to be quite honest.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, everyone has their strengths. It's nice to play to them. And I'm sure with the growth of your business, it gets to be something that, you could help out with, but then it's a full-time job for somebody else. So it's
Yeah,
good
exactly.
to see. And Christian's very good at what he does, I have to say. He's got a real talent when it comes to gathering people and communicating and a joyous way of celebrating and talking about the brand. So he does an excellent job of that.
Yeah, and that's like, and how you see him is how he is. He's cheeky. He loves to have fun, and I'm sure you've probably had a couple of glasses of wine too many with him. All those sorts of things. He sort of likes to have a good time in that respect. Making sure people are having everyone's enjoying themselves.
It comes down to hospitality in the end, and you guys are natural, hospitable people, and I think that that's important. But what do you hope for the future of the business? Is this something that you hope one day, future children will go into, or, are you not thinking that far away?
It's really interesting. Our parents sort of just let us take our own path, and that's what I've done with my wife and I have done with our children, and I'm sure Christian will probably will go down that path. It's kind of like, if they come back, great, and if they don't, then we'll have to work something out. They've all worked within the business. They've worked at the restaurant, or they've worked in the vineyard. One of them's done vintage. It's nearly like, if they follow their path and it leads them back here, then it'll be coming back for the right reasons. And that's when you'll get the best results. Does that make enough sense?
Oh, definitely. And I think that that's probably quite an Australian outlook on things that I have mentioned before on this podcast. But that kind of laid back attitude of, I hope they come back, but I'll let them see and do what they need to first. It seems to work more often than not, that freedom to go explore something else happens, and then one day they go, oh, this wine thing's not too shabby. But I think it's a really lovely way to look at things. And like you said, you might do an accounts degree, and then that would be really useful too. So
yeah, exactly. Yeah, or they might just travel, and then all of a sudden they're doing a vintage overseas, or they're working, wherever they might work, and they bring back a whole new, a whole different understanding of things, which would be unbelievable.
Definitely. So true. Now, tell me, in terms of, you talked about Prosecco, and we understand that is really kind of at the core of the Dal Zotto brand, but what do you particularly enjoy making at the moment? And is there a variety that you think has a very bright future in the King Valley for you?
Look, I think, I love Nebbiolo. I'm not going to lie. Probably one of my favourite wines. And we've just purchased a new property where we're planting some Nebbiolo up there, and we sort of feel we'll get some really great results. And I do think that's a variety that's growing in not so much popularity, but understanding, and sort of seeing that this wine that gives so much power can have finesse, delicacy, but then can age for, how many years. So that's one of the wines I really love. I love Pinot Bianco. I really enjoy that Northern Italian white. That sort of, we use a bit of oak with it, to give a little bit of additional complexity to that wine. We initially planted it as a blending component for our L'Immigrante Prosecco, and then just fell in love with it as a still wine. And so we've started to really make that, and hoping to see that grow. It's sort of popular at Salador, but we would love to see that one. I'd love to see that one develop a little further as well.
Well, I'm right with you with Nebbiolo. Huge fan.
Yeah, it's the red, as far as I'm concerned. It's the red of reds. and I'm not biased at all.
No. Well, there's a lot of winemakers out there that would agree with you as well. So, and tell me, when you sit back at the end of the day after a hard day, what is the greatest joy in, with what you're doing? If you had to take a moment and say, that's what I do it for, what would that be?
Oh, just seeing people enjoy what we have, whether it's having lunch or whether it's, they're here staying and they go for a walk down the river and they sort of see the beauty that we see. Tasting wine. It's kind of, with wine, and you would have had this where you have those moments where you go, oh, wow, I get it. Mm. When people have those moments, like the first time I ever had aged Riesling, and people would be talking to me about, Rieslings are a great wine because of this, this, and this. And then it wasn't until an older vigneron put on a tasting of Rieslings from that current vintage to 30 years old. And I went, oh, wow, this is amazing. Like, now I get why people love this variety. When I had the first time I ever had a really good Barolo, and went, oh my gosh, how good is this? And the person I was having it with goes, this wine's amazing. Where did you get it? And it wasn't an expensive Barolo. It was Marcelino at the time. They're bloody expensive now, but at the time it wasn't. And that's like, those moments are what I take the greatest joy in hopefully being able to have people experience.
Yeah. Yeah, it's very nice to witness when that light bulb moment goes off for somebody, or just something you say resonates, and because it's so personal for everybody, and so you can throw it around and lots of terminology and lots of aromas and things and all might go by the wayside, but when you stick at it, there are those light bulb moments. I'd love to know a little bit about your palate as well. Michael, if you could only drink 3 beverages for the rest of your life, what would they be and why?
Oh, that is so tough. Like, I'm just going to be biased and say Prosecco because I love it, and I love its versatility. I love its freshness. I like that you can have the col fondos and they can be developed. A no-brainer would be Nebbiolo as a red. I love from the just nice everyday drinking Lange styles to the more robust reds that are aged and have beautiful structure and delicacy and all those things you want in a wine. And then I sit there and I'm like, what is it that great aged Riesling, or is it just a Chardonnay? You know what I mean? Just a beautiful Chardonnay with some lovely oak, lovely depth and complexity. That's where I sit. I don't know if you were looking for me to go that one person or that one winery, but I went around varieties, and for me it was those. And to be honest, I could, just lock myself away and enjoy that.
I think you've covered all the bases there, and I'm going to allow you aged Riesling and Chardonnay because I'm that kind of girl. I'm just generous.
Nice, thank you. I was sort of like, I know that there's the Italian whites there, but I do enjoy all wine. I'm not going to lie.
Me too.
It's kind of like food and wine. It's a thing.
It is a thing. Serving it and creating it's quite one, but the other of just sitting back and enjoying it is another entire different amount of pleasure.
Exactly right.
Michael, I adore the family, the brand, the wines, all of it, the whole package. Thank you so much for making time. I hope that we get to cross paths. I think we will fairly soon. And it's always just a pleasure to chat.
If you're ever in the valley, just the door's open. And thank you for contacting us. Really appreciate it.
You're so very welcome. And cheers to you. Thank you.
Cheers. Thank you.
This is Over a Glass. I'm Shanteh Wale. Stay tuned for more stories from the world of wine and drinks. Listen in every Thursday on your podcast app. Follow us on Instagram at overaglasspod and contact us at overaglass@deepintheweeds.com.au.